During the Council of Elrond, the hobbit Frodo Baggins puts himself forward, volunteering to take the ring to Mordor and destroy it. On the face of it, a strange choice to let a hobbit be trusted with the fate of Middle-earth. However, there is evidence to suggest Frodo may have been pushed, or at least guided, by a higher power to put himself forward. In this video, I'll be exploring this very theory. Welcome to Ring Theory. The Council of Elrond is a huge crossroads moment in The Lord of the Rings, where the races of Middle-earth gather together to give information about the One Ring being discovered and ultimately decide on how they will move forward. It is a famous scene in the films and a humongous chapter, by far the biggest in the books. The Council recounted the known history of the One Ring. We learn of Gollum's escape from the Mirkwood dungeons, we learn how Gandalf has been held up, and how Barlam and Butterbeer forgot to pass on a message to Frodo in the Shire. As the council draws to a close, Elrond ultimately decides the ring must be taken to Mordor and destroyed. Bilbo valiantly tries to put himself forward, but Gandalf explains the ring has now passed on and the task is beyond his strength. Then we get the moment where Frodo puts himself forward. Frodo glanced at all the faces, but they were not turned to him. All the council sat with downcast eyes, as if deep in thought. A great dread fell on him, as if he was awaiting the pronouncement of some doom that he had long foreseen and vainly hoped might after all never be spoken. An overwhelming longing to rest and remain at Bilbo's side in Rivendell filled his heart. At last, with an effort, he spoke, and wondered to hear his own words as if some other will was using his small voice. "I will take the ring," he said, "though I do not know the way." One way to interpret this is that Frodo feels almost obliged to put himself forward due to an intuition that his fate is somehow bound to the ring. Another theory is that Eru Ilúvatar, the godlike creator of the world, has simply nudged Frodo into putting himself forward. When he is described to have wondered to hear his own words as if some other will was using his small voice, that certainly sounds like some other will could be Eru, and that Frodo's actions were being guided by something bigger. For those that aren't aware, Eru Ilúvatar is the godlike figure responsible for the creation of Arda, the world where the continent of Middle-earth is and where the Lord of the Rings is based. Although he doesn't feature directly in the stories of The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, he features heavily in the Silmarillion, where his creation of the world is detailed. Despite not featuring directly in the main stories, it wouldn't be the only time we know him to have intervened. One of his main interventions is to wash away the island of Númenor in retaliation for Ar-Pharazôn attempting to sail to and invade Valinor in the Second Age. This is his most direct and clear intervention. He also revives Gandalf, giving him a second chance as Gandalf the White, and lastly, Tolkien himself appears to confirm in letter 192 that Eru intervened in the Cracks of Doom. The other power then took over, the writer of the story, by which I do not mean myself, the one ever-present person who is never absent and never named. In classic Tolkien fashion, in attempting to give an answer to a question here, he gives a somewhat ambiguous answer that causes more questions. His words in this letter appear to imply that Eru literally made Gollum trip into Mount Doom. Admittedly though, the world of Lord of the Rings, Tolkien's creation and the will of Eru is always more complicated. Across the ages of Middle-earth, we see that fate, oaths and curses can hold real weight. Gollum himself swears on the precious and to serve its master. Him tripping could simply be the consequence of him betraying his oath. And, this is complicated I know, but bear with me, since Eru created the world and the laws of it, when Tolkien says the other power took over, he could simply mean the power and rules of the world set out by Eru took over at this pivotal point to punish Gollum, meaning that the world, rules and laws set out by Eru intervened indirectly at this point, rather than simply deciding to trip Gollum, as it appears on first read of the letter. Getting back to the point of this video, whether directly or indirectly, Eru has a track record of intervening in the goings-on of Middle-earth, when he sees fit. Something else that backs this up is the reaction of characters like Gandalf and Elrond to Frodo taking the ring. Gandalf speaks about Frodo being meant to have it and the ring passing on from Bilbo, as though the whole thing is being guided by something greater. Elrond's response to Frodo putting himself forward is, Elrond raised his eyes and looked at him, and Frodo felt his heart pierced by the sudden keenness of the glance. If I understand aright that I have heard, he said, I think that this task is appointed for you, Frodo, and that if you do not find a way, no one will. Gandalf as a Maiar and Elrond as an elf have closer links than mortal beings to the Valar, and therefore, even unintentionally, may feel their actions guided by the Valar and Eru's will. In Gandalf's case specifically, being a Maiar, the purpose of his being is to see out the will of the Valar in Middle-earth, and as the Valar serve Eru, he by proxy is seeing out Eru's will. The fact these two major characters are arguably the two most in agreement for Frodo to take the ring, I believe gives evidence to the fact that Eru wanted Frodo to have the ring, so he definitely had the motive to intervene. One thing I want to make clear is that this theory shouldn't take anything away from Frodo. He still shows incredible bravery to march into the unknown. I am not suggesting that Eru forced him to speak. He then snapped back into himself and embarked on a perilous quest to save the world just to save face. If the theory is true, it's more likely that Frodo was nudged or given a light push to put himself forward at the right time, maybe even before Frodo came to the realisation himself that he wanted to volunteer. One thing is for sure, the layers of Tolkien's Middle-earth and the fact that we can still discuss theories like this all these years later is a testament to how truly great these stories are. To conclude, how it is described in the Council of Elrond definitely hints that there was something more than just Frodo deciding on a whim to take the ring to Mordor. We know Eru has intervened in the past, so it wouldn't be an anomaly, and the wisest characters in the story, with links to Eru himself, are the biggest backers for Frodo taking the ring. Do you agree with the theory that Frodo was nudged to put himself forward? Or do you feel that this is a classic case of over-analysis and Frodo was acting of his own accord? Please let me know in the comments below and vote in the poll that I will put in the link in the description. Thanks for watching Ring Theory. On this channel, I'll be covering anything and everything to do with The Lord of the Rings. If you like what you hear, please remember to like the video and subscribe.